Something I've wanted to do for years is make a video that reviews the plot of Sonic Battle in depth. It'll also serve as a reminder that Emerald's not supposed to talk like a generic robot like he does in IDW. Obviously, the plot starts with Sonic's story. Eggman finds Emerald useless and throws him away on the beach near Sonic and Tails' house because the robot can't follow any of his orders due to his infantile mental age. Apparently couldn't reprogram him to get him to work for him, even though he does just that in Sonic Advance 3. Somehow he's too stupid to think to use his materials to make other robots, which would also spite the robot for not responding to him. Eggman yells at Emerald to give him back the Chaos Emerald he placed in him because he wasn't following his orders. He decides to throw away Emerald because he's already used his data to create robots that will do what he says. Why didn't he have him taken apart to get the Emerald out of him? It's not like him to just accept the loss of an Emerald without even having his enemies around. He's supposed to be smart. He should know Tails could reprogram it and use it to fight him if he leaves it here. He should have been written to throw Emerald in the dumpster at least, so there'd be a good chance of his enemies not finding him. Not the dumbest place possible. Sonic finds Emerald on the beach and actually asks him if he's alright, even though he thinks he's Eggman's robot. It's sweet, but it makes no sense for Sonic to care about a robot when he usually destroys them happily and sees them as worthless. And he looks more like a robot than Bell does. He decides to show Emerald his power, and the screen's background goes dark briefly as Sonic has an evil smirk. You have no clue what exactly Sonic did. It would have been nice to see Sonic spin dash around in a circle at the speed of sound, but nope. Okay, this phrase is actually unintelligible, because there's clearly a lot of words missing from it. What does the word represent even in there for? I hate how Sonic keeps calling Emerald it, and even calls him this thing at one point, despite him trying to be nice to him. He considers Emerald a thing, but he's still showing compassion for him? That makes no sense. After Sonic takes Emerald to Tails' house north of Emerald Town, and I glare at the game for being responsible for establishing the stupid lore in the canon that Tails has his own house despite being a kid. After Sonic takes Emerald to town, he meets up with Shadow, who is annoyed that Sonic has already established a link with Emerald, showing that he knows something about Emerald as well. So Team Dark spies on Eggman for fun. Shadow decides to destroy Emerald, and Sonic decides to fight Shadow to protect him. After this fight, Emerald gets a move from Sonic and a move from Shadow. I assume the reason he doesn't copy abilities in IDW is because he already copied all the abilities of the main characters that he knows. And I also assume there's a limit to how many abilities he can copy. So that's why I presume he's not gonna copy Surgeon Kit's abilities, because there'd be no reason that the copy ability would have been taken out of him considering how useful it'd be to the heroes. Shadow says that he still hasn't regained his full power yet, and warns Sonic to not let Eggman get a hold of the Gizoid. He says he'll be back, and tells Sonic to take care of the Gizoid until then. Tails shows up, and after Sonic asks him to fix Emerald, he leaves, saying that he spotted Rouge lurking around the beach even though he showed no signs of knowing she was there beforehand. Tails happily brings Emerald to his lab after complaining about Sonic always being on the run. You'd expect him to be cautious and wary about just fixing up a robot Sonic found that could kill him for all he knows. He has no reason not to assume that this is anything but one of Eggman's dangerous robots. Emerald clearly doesn't look like a robot of guns. So why is Tails fixing him with no qualms about it, with no indication that he's gonna look through his programming for Kill Sonic code and get rid of it? It's just weird because you never see Sonic bringing badniks to him to do the same thing to them. It seems unfair that he only made an exception for him because he's as tall as him. Why did Rouge call Emerald a girl robot? Rouge challenges Sonic to a fight, saying that if he loses, he'll have to partner up with her. So I guess she assumes the only reason he would hold up his end of the bargain is his honor. And Sonic calls this getting romantic. I didn't interpret it that way so much as Rouge trying to take advantage of him to steal jewels. which you should know he wouldn't do regardless. Of course, with gameplay and story segregation, that's not actually the consequences of losing. I hate the way Rouge's picture looks right now. I don't like that Tails' workshop isn't in Mystic Ruins. I always picture Sonic and Tails living in a house in the Mystic Ruins. If they love nature so much, wouldn't they prefer to live outside the city? And the Tails' lab looks nothing like you'd expect the lab of a little kid to look like. It looks like a sinister government building. Sonic encounters a gray emerald copy robot that speaks in stereotypical robot speak and attacks him. The fake emeralds over the course of the game go from speaking in typical robot speak to talking more normally and intelligently, for no adequately explained reason. Sonic gets worried about Tails from seeing the robot there, and decides to rush to where he is to see if he's okay. That's pretty sweet of him. Although it is weird that he's underestimating his ability to fight robots. Tails tells Sonic that a gray emerald lookalike has robbed a bunch of jewelry stores. Why? Rouge doesn't know how to program robots. Aren't Eggman's robots just about killing Sonic? Why would Eggman tell him to rob jewelry stores all of a sudden? Is he going to sell the jewelry for money so that he can buy robot materials on the black market? But he can just take anything he wants. Tails decides that Sonic will fight Emerald using a heavy attack. Even Sonic points out how nonsensical it is, saying that the robot looks so damaged that it's surprising he can even stand on his own. Why does Tails just say, "Don't worry about it," instead of acknowledging his concern? He's not like this. Why is everyone so eager to beat up their friends in this game? It's bad writing, and it creates a lot of unfortunate implications. Tails could have sent nanites at Emerald that already fixed them, and it would make more sense. Tails comes to the conclusion that since Emerald is powered by Chaos Emeralds, he'll regain his energy and even be able to speak properly after being given more emeralds. It's a lot more intuitive that he learns to speak properly because of the social interaction he has. It just doesn't fit as much with the tone of the game. It kind of defeats the point of he's growing up. Tails says he's discovered that Emerald can learn attack techniques by observing or being hit by attacks. Tails tells Sonic that it's all he was able to learn because his computer crashed from the massive overload of data from having Emerald plugged into it. I guess he upgraded his computer so that it was even possible for him to reprogram him in Sonic Advance 3. It's weird that characters are actually mentioning KO battles by name in the actual dialogue, and so casually at that. Why is Sonic fighting Tails? Tails doesn't have anything against them here, so this is extremely out of character for them. Why the hell would he ever want to knock out Tails multiple times? Why would Tails agree to it? Wouldn't the kid start crying after being knocked out by his big brother figure even once? Sonic never mentioned anything about fighting Tails, so why is he doing it? After this, Sonic decides to take Emerald to Emerald Beach. It's called Emerald Coast, not Emerald Beach. Tails has the idea to bring Emerald to Knuckles, and Sonic agrees, saying that Knuckles is already familiar with Chaos Emeralds. But he's not usually around the actual Chaos Emerald. Sonic is a lot more familiar with Chaos Emeralds. And the whole world should be familiar with the idea of Chaos Emeralds. Sonic decides right here to name the robot Emerald because he's powered by Chaos Emeralds. Tails makes it clear that he doesn't like the name, saying sadly, "real clever." But since he's humoring Sonic politely instead of outright calling him an idiot, he's actually sympathetic in this game instead of an annoying brat. Though I wouldn't like him being a total doormat either. Tails is right in front of him. Shouldn't he be saying, "your house"? Sonic calls Eggman a cheeseball. Wow, Sonic is cheesy. I get it, he's kid-friendly, but he's pretty lame when he talks like this. And he's trying to be serious when he says this, so it's not just his dorky sense of humor that makes him a little endearing. Sonic from the very beginning was supposed to be cool and edgy, not lame and cheesy. After reaching Tails' house and seeing a fake emerald in front of it, Sonic, rather than mistaking the fake emerald for the real one like plenty of other games would make him do, sends Emerald to fight his copy alone to test out his abilities. After this, Tails reminds Sonic they have to go see Knuckles, who is up in the direction of the Holy Summit. I thought he lived on Angel Island. I don't like that name. Instead, Sonic just goes north of Emerald Town and he's suddenly in a grassy, mountainous area where Knuckles lives. I thought he lived on Angel Island. This hub makes no sense. Why couldn't they simply have Tails taking the biplane to Angel Island? They meet up with what looks like Gamma. He's not Gamma, he just looks like him. Gamma starts a fight. Tails mentions that he's scared, but he still has a happy picture of himself above his dialogue box. They had one job! The cutscene presentation does exactly one thing to try to make things more clear, and it can't even get that right. Sonic and Tails go to the cave without indoor heating or air conditioning where Knuckles apparently lives. At least it's better than never showing any sort of shelter for him. Knuckles is a confrontational dick to Sonic as usual, acting like a jerk after Sonic says he needs to borrow his Chaos Emerald. Knuckles accuses Emerald of being the robot that's been robbing jewelry stores, even though Emerald is very clearly a different color from the robot he's referring to. What, does Knuckles think that Emerald got a new paint job? Well, actually that does make sense, but they should have had him say that. But then Sonic shows himself to be an idiot as well. Rather than immediately telling Knuckles as his first sentence that Emerald isn't the robot he's referring to, instead he just tells him to chill out and starts trying to explain that Emerald is powered by Chaos Emeralds, even though Knuckles is clearly not in the mood to listen to his explanation. Sonic, you're an idiot. He's been friends with Knuckles for years. You'd think he'd know to talk to him by now. This is like Sonic rivals. Knuckles tells him to shut up and decides to destroy Emerald. And Sonic tells Emerald that Knuckles won't listen to anyone weaker than him. So Knuckles won't listen to Tails? Or Amy? What a dick. At least this isn't always true. So in retrospect, it's more like an exaggeration of his character. In a classic example of talking as a free action, Sonic tells Emerald all about Knuckles' attacks and how to attack him. And Knuckles just stands there and lets Sonic tell Emerald about how to beat his own friend in a fight. It could have worked if they were running in a circle the whole time. After Knuckles loses to Emerald, he agrees to give Sonic the Chaos Emerald, even though Emerald beating him in a fight did nothing to prove to him that he was wrong about his accusation of him. Tails puts an emerald in Emerald, and he thanks him. Is the text spelling it that way to imply that he's saying it slowly? And how does he know how to say thank you and when to do it when he's never heard it before? So he already has a vocabulary in him. Why did he say Metal? He hasn't met Metal Sonic. We start out with a black background with Sonic and Emerald, with Sonic saying that he'll play with him at the beach by fighting him some more. I hope Emerald can't feel pain. The end of the game reveals that he can feel pain. So then why is he okay with this? I guess he only feels pain when he's visibly damaged, because only then would pain actually be worthwhile. Then we see Tails looking sad that Sonic is spending all of his time with Emerald, beating him up. Oh, I wish Sonic was beating me up. This plot is stupid. Tails decides to find out more about Emerald by using the computer in the central lab. Why isn't Tails' own computer better than the computer in the central lab, when he's supposed to be the smartest person on the planet? Sonic just said that right in front of you. Or did he? The presentation's so awful he might not have and I wouldn't know. Sonic challenges Tails and Emerald to a fight where whoever gets 10 KOs wins. Again, why does Sonic want to beat up his little brother so badly? Has it been replaced by an evil twin? After the fight is over, Tails talks like a whiny little kid. And for some reason, he insists on taking Emerald to Central Lab by himself instead of going there with Sonic. I guess what he has against Sonic is him spending all of his time with Emerald. Emerald doesn't obey Tails until Sonic gives him permission to. In Central City, you see a building with a Sonic Team sign on it, and Central City has a neon sign on the side of it saying the word Sonic vertically. It doesn't make much sense in universe, because Sonic doesn't own that lab. When Tails gets Emerald to Central Lab, the security guy refuses to let him in and do what he wants because it's a restricted area, even though Tails is one of the heroes of the world and you'd think he'd have special privileges. Of course people would know who he is, Some of the civilians are so ungrateful. Rouge comes up to Tails, asking if he's lost his mama. Again, acting out of character. She said that when Tails clearly doesn't have a mother. She just gets away with being condescending to him for no reason. She tells him that she'll let him into Central Lab because she's an agent for the president. Really, Tails? I don't remember very many times where Rouge was mean to them. The idiotic Team Dark fight in Sonic Heroes was an exception. Tails, you met Rouge before. How is she a stranger? The sentence you just said contradicted that. Oh god, the translation for this game is horrible. Why did Sonic tell Tails never to talk to strangers? When you'd think he'd be encouraging Tails to be more social like him rather than shy like he was at first. Because that's the only way he'd be able to get him to get out of his shell and stop being afraid of humanity. Rouge tells Tails that if he and Emerald win a 10 KO battle fight with her, she'll give him the lab pass. I have to assume she's doing this because she wants to make Emerald stronger. Tails says that he doesn't trust Rouge, which makes sense because she doesn't explain that to him. After Tails defeats her with Emerald, Rouge says something sweet. After Emerald doesn't respond, Rouge mentions that he doesn't listen to anyone but his master and leaves. And then Tails, who's supposed to be a genius, doesn't know what a master is. And you'd think he would have heard Eggman call himself the master of his robots after dealing with him for years. Who translated this? Tails goes up to the security guy. Okay, did anyone proofread this game? Tails uses the lab pass to get in and plugs Emerald into the lab's computer. Tails decides to examine Emerald's structural data. Unfortunately, the computer was unable to access any data from Emerald. Tails decided to bypass Emerald's security protocols to get an idea of its basic structure. Tails finds out that this weapon was discovered in the ancient ruins. So he really was discovered in ancient ruins and was just moved to a warehouse. And finds out it's called a Gizoid. Tails finds out that Geologist Robotnik had found Emerald, and that Emerald could potentially go out of control. Most of what he finds out is something we already know about. Maybe we should have only gotten diary entries from Gerald after this point. Because it'd be more impactful to find out about Gerald being the one who found him if we saw it through the lens of the main character. Guard Robos was sent after Tails because somehow the building found out that restricted data was accessed that only the government is supposed to know. But all Tails has to do is destroy all of the robots and the government won't come after him. There wasn't any record kept of what he did or anything. He wasn't caught on camera. How? Maybe he was, but since it was Tails, they didn't care. After that fight, Tails and Emerald run out of Central Lab, only to have to fight even more Guard Robos. Tails and Emerald run into Shadow in front of Central Lab. Why was Shadow there? I guess he was stalking them? And Shadow asks why Tails doesn't destroy Emerald now that he knows who he really is, even though he could fight Eggman. Shadow insists that there's no need to repeat past tragedies and no one needs to go through what he has. He becomes determined to protect his friend from Shadow, who says that builders will never know how their creations truly feel. Is he insulting Gerald Robotnik when he says that? I thought they had a good father-son relationship. Maybe he's only saying that because of his friend Omega's experiences with Eggman. Rouge shows up, telling them to stop fighting and leave before Guard Robos catch up with them. She implies that Shadow was injured and she was nice enough to take care of him. So it sucks that we didn't know that until now. And because of the horrible cutscene presentation, I have no idea what Shadow actually did. And Tails decides to let Sonic and Knuckles know what he discovered about Emerald. He decides to take out the Guard Robo blocking the east way out of the hub world to escape to Holy Summit. When the two of them reach Knuckles, his dialogue implies that he at least trusts him. When Emerald doesn't say anything to him, the way he talks causes another fight with Knuckles. Tails tells Knuckles to go with him to Emerald Beach to tell him and Sonic something. There's another fight with Gamma. Eventually, Tails leaves without Knuckles and is just about to tell Sonic what he discovered about Emerald when Rouge shows up. and does it in a scarier way. And after Sonic gets offended at hearing that, Tails tells him it's true. Rouge gets the idea to give Emerald all 7 of the Chaos Emeralds like Shadow didn't want, and reset Emerald to turn him into an ordinary robot, erasing his data as a battle weapon. Why don't they get Tails to erase his data as a battle weapon right now? With a better computer, obviously. Why would they give him all of the emeralds? Why would they think an all-emerald emerald wouldn't crash the computer? He would be especially powerful. Tails decides to power Emerald up, and then figure out how to reset him afterwards. Great plan. That's something Sonic would come up with, not Tails. Ugh, it's the kind of plan that only happens to cause the plot to keep happening. Sonic and Tails don't trust Rouge, thinking that she only does good deeds to benefit herself. I mean, it does come from somewhere, because she was working for Gun because she was being paid in jewels. And she thinks being a jewel thief would be more difficult if Eggman took over the world. She doesn't explain why though. So I'm forced to assume it's because she thinks flying robots will be constantly patrolling the streets. I like how Rouge is about to call Emerald it, but then starts calling him a he. She says that he won't even talk to her without Sonic ordering him to do so. This always confused me. You'd think he would have to be ordered not to talk to people. Sonic has the brilliant idea to tell Emerald that he has to listen to Rouge, even though she's a jewel thief that he doesn't trust. Was Rouge really an essential part of his development? Rouge immediately leaves after Sonic says that because she got what she wanted, and Knuckles shows up afterwards. Sonic is a dick. All of them run off, with Tails being upset at Sonic and Knuckles not getting along. And we get another diary entry from Jailed Robotnik. I guess it was too nice to get rid of him after he thought he was a horrible weapon.